What's going on, y'all? Welcome to episode 1 of the Dimes and Deadlines podcast. I am your host, Kenny Morales, joined by my co-host, Mr. Asher Wildman. Asher, how you doing, buddy?
You know, it feels like a father-son kind of moment, although I'm not old enough to be your father. So we'll say, as we always say, it's an uncle-nephew kind of relationship.
There you go. Now, for those who are joining us for this first episode, chances are you probably know me and Asher personally. So first off, thanks for listening. But if you don't, real quick, the reason we're doing this podcast and the reason for the name behind it. So me and Asher used to work in sports media for a number of years. I was in it for 10 years. Asher, how long were you in it for?
Oh, wow. Let's see. 6 and then 4 and then 13 for sports.
13. All right. You got me beat. But we thought it'd be fun to not only continue to talk about sports, which is something we're both very passionate about, but also give you a little peek behind the curtain of what it was like to work in the sports media industry as local TV sports reporters, anchors, producers, you name it. You'll find out very quickly if you work in the industry, you wear a lot of different hats when you're working in local TV news. And so for the first episode, Asher actually came up with a pretty fun topic that I thought would be a great way to start off. The very first story that you ever covered when you were a local TV sports reporter. Asher, what was the exciting and incredible story that you did?
Well, I think the first thing you got to point out is you got to remember when you start off in local sports, you're going to the middle of nowhere.
Absolutely.
You don't get to cover the NBA. You don't get to cover NFL. So I know, for those that may not know, my local sports career started in El Paso, Texas, where I got to tell you, Kenny, I was the white guy.
Were you really? I could not see that at all.
I was the white, and I was the guy with red hair.
The red-haired guy didn't fit in El Paso?
I stuck out like you would not believe in El Paso. Now, I'll say this, though. I freaking loved El Paso. It was an awesome town living on the borderland. I liked El Paso, Las Cruces, New Mexico. But, I mean, dude, let's be honest. There's a 98% Mexican community. I'm a white guy from South Florida. Never in my life did I ever think I was going to be a minority. And it's different.
It definitely is.
It's different. It was different.
It was for me as well. Remember, for those who don't know, I worked my very first job in Wausau, Wisconsin. If you don't know where that is, about an hour and a half west of Green Bay. You've probably heard of that town.
Don't lie. Did you even know how to spell it when you applied?
No, originally when I actually applied, I mispronounced the name. I thought it was Wausau. I didn't know it was Wausau. They quickly reminded me. Also, if you didn't know, Wisconsin has a ton of weird sounding towns. A lot of Polish communities up there. So there's just crazy names, a lot of consonants. You don't know how to pronounce them. But yeah, I was the minority there. One of the very few Hispanic people, believe it or not.
Yeah. So, all right. So, it's funny. I moved to El Paso in the summer. So obviously you're not covering UTEP. You're not covering NMSU until they break for fall camp. So the sports director at the time that I was under said, all right, you got to go get a local story. So what did I cover? The El Paso Senior Games, the horseshoe contest. I mean, you can't make this up. You cannot make this up.
I love it.
And I literally, I'll never forget. And I was really thinking to myself, okay, they're going to have me cover boxing. Maybe there's El Paso, for those that may not know, I know this sounds weird, but because it's got the terrain and mountains like Africa, there's a lot of runners that go there to train. And I thought, all right, maybe I'll do a running story. But boy, I got to tell you, when you watch as a child Sports Center your whole life, and you're told go cover a senior game horseshoe contest, it is a humbling experience, especially after you've covered golf for 6 years. Because I transitioned, I covered golf for 6 years, and then I wanted to get into the local TV.
That's right. You got to cover golf for a while there.
Yeah, I did. I traveled
some of the big names.
Yeah, I traveled around I covered Ricky Fowler when he was 14 years old with blue hair, and that's for another podcast another time. But I'll tell you, Kenny, covering senior horseshoes.
I didn't even know that was. Did you learn? I don't know the rules of horseshoes. Did you have to learn about the rules or anything like that? Because I know the game, but I couldn't tell you how you score a point, how you win, or anything like that.
Well, and I'm trying to remember. I think, so Nintendo Wii had just come out at this time. This was 2012-ish, right?
I love the Wii, yes.
Everybody was talking about how seniors were playing this for bowling. Did you get exercise in?
I love Wii bowling. That's so much fun.
So it was really Nintendo Wii bowling help these people learn how to play horseshoes in a way, I guess you could say. Because I remember the women out there teaching these people, you want to do it like this. And I'm like,
That
oh,
is
that's
true.
exactly how you hold that Wii
It's
controller.
exactly how you do it with the controller. Yeah, I never thought of that. That's very true.
But I got back, and I got to tell you, people saw the story, and I mean, look, they liked it. It was enjoyable. And look, one of my favorite all-time TV characters is Frank Costanza. And being a Jewish kid from South Florida, like I know old people. Like old people get me, and I get them. So this was like a very good experience for me to fit in with my kind of people. Now, granted, they were all Hispanic. It don't matter though. They were seniors. They're adorable. And I'll never forget one guy. I said, "Hey, so why do you do this?" He goes, "Well, I'm 84 years old, and it gives me something to do."
I respect it. I love that.
Are you able to play the video?
I watched it earlier. I can see if I can maybe edit it into here so I could show people. It was just funny seeing
we
it.
have like a little break to show that video. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. This is local television.
How old were you when you did that story? Do you remember?
Yeah. So let's see. I was 2012 when I did that. So 28. 27, 28.
I feel like you've aged gracefully.
Oh, thank you.
You don't look that different.
My wife tells me to moisturize.
I was gonna say, other than like maybe the hairstyle is a little different. You look the same.
I've had the same hairstyle for 12 years, but nothing's changing here.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I thought maybe it was a little bit shorter than what I've seen you recently, but
yeah, maybe I need a haircut.
So
what about Wausau? What did you cover? Wrestling and Wausau?
Oh my God. Yes. Wrestling was one of the things that I had to kind of like horseshoes. I'd never covered wrestling in my life. I've also never grew up a big WWE guy, just never my thing. So it was one of those things where I had to like legitimately sit down and research like what's a pin, how do you get points, what's a reversal, like all this stuff. And they take it very seriously up there. Yeah. Like along with football and basketball, I'd say wrestling was like just as popular. The gyms were packed. I couldn't remember the very first story I covered like yours, but one that sticks out to me because I love sharing it with people that are especially like kids getting into the industry was I went to go shoot very early on in my time there. I went to go shoot a high school hockey game. And, in the middle of nowhere, almost every story you're going to go do or whatever game you're going to go shoot is probably at least a 30, 40-minute drive away. Yep. And it's snowing, never driven in snow before, seen snow, used to live in Jersey, but never snowed to this amount. And I was driving and all of a sudden I just spin out. I spin out and I go into oncoming traffic and I lose my what. I have a mini heart attack in my car. And I had to pull over and I called my mom, like almost on the verge of tears, being like,
can he call his mom?
I did. I called my mommy and I was legit like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting my life on the line to go shoot this high school hockey game that 10 people are going to watch? It's legit. You've been there. You go to some of these games, maybe 5 or 10 people in the stands. It's all parents.
It ain't the Sharks and Avalanche we grew up watching on SportsCenter.
It is not. No, it's not like the Tampa Bay Lightning that I covered for 5 years here. It's not the Stanley Cup final. Far from it. And then also on the way back, I spun out in the snow. And what's wild to me about this, and I didn't realize it until I got there. People, I don't know if it's a Wisconsin thing or a Midwest thing. People there like drive into ditches constantly and they don't seem to care. For me, like a Floridian, I'm like, oh crap, someone went into a ditch. Holy, like Jesus, how are we gonna help them? It happens so often up there. People are just like, whatever. Just normal life.
But and here's the crazy thing. Like, I know you're from Fort Myers. I know, and look, everybody's from somewhere, right? But I think the thing that was so tough for me for this transition, if you will, to local TV, is that I was from Parkland, right? So we got the Fort Lauderdale news a lot. You either had Miami news or Fort Lauderdale news. Mm-hmm. So my sportscast, even if I wasn't SportsCenter, right? Like even when at dinner time, my family, we watched the news, and I, of course, always wanted to watch the sports segment. But I was watching every night the Dolphins, the Heat, the Panthers, the Marlins, the U. This was what my local sports was. So when I got into local sports, I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm going to cover some pretty cool stuff. And then the general manager and the news director's like, hey, so horseshoes. And just like, what?
It was
Joe
like
Rose
that.
Never did that.
Yeah, it was like that somewhat for me as well. Fort Myers, not as obviously big as of a market as Fort Lauderdale, but still, I mean, for the most part, they talked about the Bucks and the teams in Miami. Obviously, a lot of spring training down there. Did a little bit of high school, but like I went to high school down there, and we had a really good basketball team my junior and senior year, my senior specifically. I think one person came out and did a story on us, maybe. I don't remember seeing any TV cameras out there unless it was the City of Palms basketball tournament, which is like a huge national thing. But like in Wisconsin, high school basketball, it was like I got angry emails from parents if we didn't go cover their games or didn't get this specific highlight from their kid. And it's like, man, y'all don't know how lucky you have it up here with your local TV news coverage. Because down in Florida, I mean, other than like Gainesville, Tallahassee is also a smaller market, but like everywhere else, Orlando, Tampa, Miami, they're not really getting that kind of coverage minus high school football. That's about it.
Or maybe a state championship game. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Like if it's like, I know here in Tampa, they do a lot of stories that baseball's so big here in terms of high school. Like there's tons of MLB guys from here. And it feels like every other year there's a team here that's like number 1 or number 2 in the country. So they'll do a story on them, but that's about it.
Yeah. Now, and the crazy thing is, you and I both went to UCF. So again, our next TV markets that we were watching as people was Orlando. So we had the Magic, we had UCF. This is a big Gator town. So we had Gators. They would show FSU because you also had a lot of people, FSU graduates here. You had Bay Hill. So even like the small town local sports wasn't small. You weren't covered. No, let me put it this way. No sports anchor, okay, in the early 2000s and mid 2000s was covering cross country and a high school Thursday night basketball game between Boone and Winter Park for the Battle of the Barrel or whatever that game is. You know what I mean? Like football, yes. But it was just so, maybe, and maybe this is different. I don't know. I know you grew up in Fort Myers, which is like a mid-market, but I really wonder, like, if I grew up in Tallahassee, or if I grew up in like a Gainesville, or if I grew up in Abilene, Texas, like I wonder if like I would be more normal, like entering the sports local TV industry, knowing
because it's what you know.
It's what I know.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, man, going from watching premier primetime sports constantly to go covering horseshoes, cross country, the Pop Warner championships,
Little League World Series. I remember doing that a little bit in Tallahassee.
Little League World Series.
Oh my goodness.
And this is stuff like, and I think again, like I think for people that live in metropolitan areas, like you really are spoiled with what you get to cover and what you get to see. And I look, there is a very small niche of people, I feel like, in those big markets that want to see those kind of stories. But when you're in the El Pasos and the Wassaws, that is what they want to see.
Absolutely. No, 110%.
And I'm probably sure you sprinkled in some Green Bay Packer stuff up there. And in El Paso, in El Paso, it's a huge Dallas Cowboy town. So anytime Cowboys were relevant. But yeah, I just think when kids get into TV, because I know when I was sitting in class, this is, I guess, what I'm trying to sum up with. When I was in class going through the broadcasting track, right? I'm covering UCF athletics, obviously, for the UCF Nightly News. But nowhere do they tell you, hey, guess what? If you got to go live in El Paso, you ain't covering the Cowboys. You're not covering the Mavericks. No, you're not covering, the Rangers for baseball. You're covering UTEP, NMSU, and whatever other kid in town is there doing. And as far as travel goes, if you can drive there, you can go there because they ain't gonna put you on a plane to get there.
It's so true. In Green Bay, that was one of the reasons like Wausau was such a cool job for me and why I ended up taking it was the fact that they did cover the Packers. And that was only like an hour and a half drive for us. So like I went to, the 1 year I was there, I went to every Wednesday practice because that's when, aging myself here, that's when McCarthy was the head coach. And that's when he would speak every Wednesday. And then open locker room, we talked to Rodgers. And again, aging myself here, Jordy Nelson, Eddie Lacy, Clay Matthews, some great names.
Well, the cool thing is when we get to do this more, I mean, we're really going to like allow people into the world of local sports television about what it's really like from the small town to the big town, because I guarantee you there's some people thinking right now, for the dozens that watch this, Asher covered all horseshoe contest. Like, are you kidding me? I remember I got a call from my dad, and because I said, "Hey, Dad, check this out. It's my first link to a story. Check this out." Son, are you sure you made the right decision? Just what you want to hear after you had a career traveling the world covering golf, covering the Masters to senior game horseshoes.
I think there's so many little tidbits like that I think are incredibly interesting and entertaining for people. That's why we thought this would be a lot of fun. For example, when I went to do Packers, again, another example of small market sports television. Obviously, the Packers are the biggest, name in Wisconsin. That is what everybody goes to cover.
Yeah.
So when we went to go do open locker room, most people had a photographer and a reporter, right, for their station, except for the small market ones. And so for the small market ones, myself included, they would give us a stool or like a little, like a ladder.
They really gave you that?
They gave us ladders. Yes, there was a
Wow.
wall. They would line little ladders on the side, and the MMJs would get that because the crowd would be so big for certain players like Rodgers or like Jordy Nelson that they would let you could step on that stool and get the overhead shot and basically hand off your microphone to like another reporter, and then they could hold it while you did that.
You'd think Florida State would have the common decency to do that for their local TV station.
That would be
two of us there.
I know that would be super helpful. As an MMJ at the time, I was a little shell shocked at first. I was like, "It's this crowded? I need a damn step stool." But
we'll do another show on SID separately. However, I'm glad that actually warms my heart to hear that the Green Bay Packers have decency to do that.
It was very helpful.
But more importantly, know that you have that. Like, that's crazy to me. I never would have guessed that a pro team would do that for a Wausau, Wisconsin. Like, do you really, like, I'm just curious. Do you think, okay, now I got to think of it. Like, okay, Miami. Well, see, the thing with Miami is you're not having, well, maybe you do. Maybe you have a guy from Fort Myers. Do you think the Dolphins have that for the guy in Fort Myers who might drive to practice, or Sarasota?
No, but I think the thing is like, I don't know. I don't think the media scrum is as big. Like, honestly, to this day, some of the biggest ones I've seen are Packers because Wisconsin, that's all they have. So everybody from Wausau, La Crosse, Madison, Milwaukee, and Green Bay, they're all going there.
So where should I know? Where's Wausau on this thing? Wait, right? Isn't that
pick the right of the middle of your hand. Pick basically the middle of your palm, and then Green Bay is over here east.
Did you ever think you'd know that?
No, honestly, I didn't. Actually, that's pretty good. I think Ashley told me that a while ago. My wife, by the way. Shout out to my wife, Ashley.
Yeah, let me show you on my hand where this is, because this is what Wisconsin looks like.
It really does, now that I think about it. I'm pretty sure she told me that before. I just can't remember. But anyway, we don't want to give away all the sports reporter behind-the-scenes stuff in one episode.
Got years of this to go. Years.
So we'll actually, the other part of the podcast named Dimes, we'll actually talk some sports as well. Asher, I wanted to ask you, what did you want to talk about, buddy?
All right. So, look, as a South Florida kid, I'm a South Florida sports fan, right? That's where I come from. I've always been a hometown kid. I root for the Dolphins, the Panthers, the Marlins, the Heat, the Hurricanes. I grew up going to the Orange Bowl and Joe Robbie Stadium. I was the original poster boy for the Florida Marlins in 1991, which was 2 years before.
Were you really?
I was.
I meant to ask you, do you have a favorite out of your Miami teams? Like, is there a team that a title would mean the most?
I wouldn't say a title that would mean the most, but I would say that there's one team I will not miss a game for, and that is the Hurricanes. I will not miss a Miami Hurricanes football.
All right. I thought so. I thought it for you was between them or I know you're a big basketball guy too, but you like the Fins as well, so I wasn't sure.
I do like the Fins. But here's the funny thing about being a Hurricane fan, because everyone's like, the championships. Folks, it's been 20 years of garbage. Like, it's been it's been 20 years of mediocrity, and I'm still a fan. And for all these people that say, "Oh, you're a Heat fan because of LeBron," all right, let me tell you something. I know who Ronnie Cycli is. Do you?
Hey, I do know who Ronnie Cycli is.
Who Alec Kessler is. Do you?
That one I don't know.
John Sunvold, Willie Burton.
Now I'm really, you're spitting names I never heard of. Ronnie Cycli, I just know because he also played for the Magic. He's who the Magic replaced Shaq with.
Yes. But Glenn Rice, right?
Yes, Glenn Rice, of course. Love Glenn Rice. I'm trying to think
Edwards, Grant Long.
Trying to think of these aren't that old, but like Tim Hardaway, of course.
No, but that was the new Miami. It's funny, the new Miami college football. No, that was the new Miami with Pat Riley when he came to town. That was big.
You gotta remember, at that time I was like, when I first my earliest NBA memory is the late 90s, because I was 8-9 years old. So I remember I was living in Jersey at the time, and so I supported the Knicks. And so that was the Knicks run to the finals, and they beat the Heat, who I think was the 1 seed. The Knicks were the 8 seed.
Allen Houston.
The Allen Houston elbow jumper. Yep, I know. And so I remember the Tim Hardaway morning. Who else was on that team? I can't remember. I know all the Knicks.
You're talking about that Miami Heat roster?
Yeah.
So it was PJ Brown.
PJ Brown. There we go. That's another one.
Vashawn Leonard.
Yes. Remember him?
I believe Clarence Weatherspoon was on that.
Weatherspoon, roster. I remember as well. Yep.
Because he replaced Anthony Mason, I think, the year after we had Anthony Mason for a while.
Yeah.
Or maybe Mason replaced Weatherspoon. But who else was on that roster? I think Bimbo Coles might have. No, was Bimbo?
I don't remember that. Was that the same series? Also, was that the same series that Jeff Van Gundy was on?
Yes. Charlie Ward
was hanging. Yeah.
No,
yeah,
I don't think that was the same series though. I think that was a different series.
Okay. Where Jeff Van Gundy was on Patrick Ewing's legs.
Yes. But we did have Zoe. We did have Hardaway. I think we had Vashawn Leonard, PJ Brown. But in any case, But no, I will not miss a Hurricane game. Even if I have to work, like I DVR it. And it's funny. I turn my Twitter off and I turn my text off. Like I put it in airplane mode. I really do. Because I don't want my friends heckling me, which I know is going to happen. And then that kind of tells me what happened in the game. Like I want to enjoy the misery on my recliner. I have a man cave for a reason. It's where I close the door and I yell out loud. But no, I really do. I've been going to the Orange Bowl since, honest to God, since I could walk. And I've seen a lot of good teams. I've seen a lot of bad teams. I was even there the last night at the Orange Bowl when Virginia beat us 58-0. It was horrific.
That's tough.
But the coolest thing of all my memorabilia, Kenny, I got to tell you, I got a football. I got to get Dorsey to sign it, but it's signed by Testaverde, Kosar, Walsh, Erickson, and Kosar.
Dang.
All the Hurricane greats.
Yeah.
So I'm not putting Ja'Cory Harris on this thing.
Okay? Oh, come on. Why not?
Ken Dorsey can have a spot on my football.
You're not getting you're not getting Brad Kaya on there?
No.
Or who's another one? Stephen Morris, wasn't he a quarterback for y'all?
Stephen Morris, Ja'Cory Harris, Kyle Wright, Brock Berlin from the Gators, the transfer.
Who was your most recent guy? The dude from Houston.
De'Aaron King.
De'Aaron King.
I don't want him on that. Scott Covington, Frank Costa, Ryan Collins.
Those
Ryan
are big.
Clement.
That's awesome.
Who was my favorite?
Yeah, who's your favorite out of that?
Honestly, all right. So seriously, so I was spoiled because even as a little kid, I got to see Gino Torretta, but it was either Gino Torretta or Frank Costa, who was after Torretta. Frank Costa, I actually got to see in the Orange Bowl. We were up 17-0 at the half against Nebraska. We lost 24-17.
Heartbreaking.
What are you gonna do?
It is what it is. Yeah. So you're all Miami. I'm kind of split between like Orlando and Tampa. Like I'm all Orlando, but there's only two major sports teams there, and the Magic and then Orlando City for MLS. And then obviously UCF. I'm UCF everything. And then Tampa, I've kind of adopted the team since I've moved here. Like I love the Lightning. They're fun to watch. Feels like it's definitely a bandwagon for me jumping on there now. And then the Rays. I like the Rays because they feel like the little engine that could story. Like it's always a shoestring budget, no name players. Although I don't know if I could say that now with guys like a Rosarina and Franco, but they're always a fun game to watch. And I like the drop.
But here's the other thing. People got to realize something because, yes, I went to UCF and yes, you went to UCF. Mm-hmm. However, the difference is we had two different experiences.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think I would be as hardcore of a UCF fan if I went when you went.
And look, and here's the funny thing. When I went to college, okay, my folks were still living in South Florida. I would take the Friday 4:00 flight from Southwest every Friday on a home game for the Hurricanes. I would fly into West Palm or Fort Lauderdale, and I would go to the Saturday Hurricane game while UCF football games were happening because I didn't care. But here's the reason why I didn't care. And this is the God's honest truth. People got to understand, like when I was a freshman at UCF, that was, I believe, and I really don't remember the flip-flopping here, but either we were Independence that year or we were in the MAC that year. Mm-hmm. My sophomore year, we went back to MAC or Independent, vice versa. Pick your whatever went. But then my junior year, and senior year, we were in Conference USA. So in 4 years, I had 3 different schedules of football to go watch Eastern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Marshall, all these places you could care less about.
Right.
But then, and the on-campus, off-campus thing never bothered me because I did go to UCF off-campus games at the Citrus Bowl.
Oh, you weren't. So that's right. You were there before they had
that's
stadium,
how
right?
old I am. Thanks a lot.
Wow,
yeah.
Sorry.
But here's the funny thing. You're a basketball guy. But even for basketball, right? I mean, my freshman year, I think we were in the TAC, which I
Oh,
believe
but I
was
don't watch any UCF basketball. I mean,
Trans-American
realistically.
Atlantic Conference. Then we were in the ASUN, which was not MAC or CUSA.
No.
Then I think my junior year, I think we were in the MAC for basketball. And my senior year, I think we were in Conference USA. But like the schools we were playing, Lipscomb,
Yeah,
Campbell,
really random
Belmont.
schools. Actually, all those schools I think are still in the ASUN, believe it or not.
But like, here's the thing though, like as a student, obviously you want to support your school. But
Right.
again, growing up in South Florida, I got to see the Big East, which was UConn, St. John's for basketball, Villanova, like the
Right.
old.
You got to see powerhouses.
Right. Before they moved to the ACC, I got to see them all in their Big East days.
Mm-hmm.
But then like you go to UCF and you're like, where the hell is Belmont? Like, I didn't know where Belmont was. I was like, Lipscomb? That's a
Lipscomb,
school?
I could not tell you where it is. Belmont's Tennessee, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Lipscomb, I think, is
I don't know.
Tennessee or
Your guess is good as
Carolina?
mine.
But that's my thing though. Like, so it was very hard, and like UCF was trying. Look, in fairness to UCF, they were trying very hard to transition to like becoming a sports brand.
Yeah.
And I feel like they really, and I do mean this, I feel like they tried to brainwash us into being fans as opposed to just letting us become fans.
Mm-hmm.
And Kirk Spiro, God bless him, the old basketball coach, couldn't win a big game by accident. I mean, let's just get that out in the open now. However, it's just hard to get into these things when they're nothing games that mean nothing. And everything was changing we had a new logo every year. I mean, it was just like a weird time for the program. And I just never was able to like get into it. It just, I
can understand that, especially the fact that you grew up in Miami. You already had your allegiances. I grew up in Fort Myers and I didn't have any teams, especially like I was coming from Jersey. So like basketball was my favorite sport. I didn't really care about college football at all until maybe my last like year or two in high school. And then once I got to UCF, really the reason I feel like I became such a fan was because that was really the start of their, ascension, really. Like my first year there was their first bowl win. They beat Georgia, the Liberty Bowl. Now I know it's 6-6 Georgia. Everyone's like, well, who cares? For UCF, it was huge. That's a big deal for us. I think we finished ranked for the first time ever. And then my senior year was the big Fiesta Bowl win against Baylor. And that was incredible. That was so much fun to see them pull off that upset. And then, I think the one loss they had was the home game against South Carolina. I went there with all my friends. That's still to this day, I think, like one of the most attended UCF games ever. That crowd was nuts. And I love the bounce house and I love the zombie nation. And that stuff has completely won me over. And now I'm a diehard UCF football fan, but I can understand where you're coming from, why it was hard during your time period.
And here's the worst thing. I was going to go to Miami. I was going to go to the U. And then my mom said the worst thing you could ever say to an 18-year-old kid with the last name Wildman. You're going to live at home.
Oh, God, no.
I said, boom, I'm going to UCF.
Oh, God. I was originally going to go to FSU, believe it or not.
You were going to go to FSU?
I was. That was originally my first choice. And then I toured it. And it was okay. Like, it's a beautiful campus. It's very old, obviously. Very vintage and all that stuff. So much history, yada, yada, yada. I liked it. But then when we were coming back, my girlfriend at the time, she was like, oh, hey, I have a brother that goes to UCF. You should check it out. He loves it. I was like, oh, all right, fine. When I toured UCF, I loved the campus. Whereas like FSU, I was like, oh, I can go here. This is cool. UCF was like, I want to be here. I like the modern feel. I thought there was so much to do. It was humongous. And I'm more of a city guy. I like that it was in Orlando. I like that I could go to a Magic game, go to downtown Orlando. Tallahassee is a college town through and through. And that's cool. To each their own. I'm more of a city boy. So I loved UCF.
So you know what's funny about that too, Kenny? Like, I remember when I was doing the whole reason I was going to college was to become a broadcaster. Like that's what I wanted to major in. And I mean, look, I'm 39 years old. I don't consider myself that old, but what I do consider is the processes that I've had that were different than yours. And what I mean by that is when I was applying for colleges, right, I had to go to my guidance counselor. We had that person help try to get us applications from these schools. And I mean, this is like, people that watch this are going to think I'm 80 years old when I tell you this story. But when I went to my guidance counselor, I think it was Mrs. Cecil. I asked her, I was like, hey, she's like, what are the out-of-state schools you really want to go to? And I was like, I was considering UNLV. I was considering Arizona State because of the Walter Cronkite School of Broadcasting.
That's a great school. Yeah.
And I was also considering North Texas only because they had a really good broadcast school at the time.
Did not know that.
And I kid you not, I was trying to get all these applications in, or what was it? You had to get the schools used to give you the applications. and they give you those catalogs and all this good stuff. So North Texas, my dad and I, we went to look at it on a business trip of his. It wasn't like anything. We didn't go like one of those open tours or anything, but we just kind of checked it out. I really liked it. And I asked my guys, I was like, hey, can you get me a North Texas application? She's like, oh, yeah, sure. 3 months go by. No application.
Nothing.
And like, this wasn't really like something you could do on the internet back then. You really like had to, fill it out, and then you would eat. Like, I mean, I know this sounds so ridiculous, but the bottom line is here, if anybody from North Texas is watching, you cost yourself probably a student, because I was all on board to go to UNT, and they never sent me an application.
Shout out UNT. Denton, UNT. I believe, right? Denton, Texas, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
And that's because funny. really a part of me wanted to go out of state for college. Like, I really did want to do that.
I didn't. I don't know why. I wanted to stay. I like Florida so much, which is funny because when we first moved here with my parents in 2000, I hated it. Just because I was coming from Jersey City, New Jersey. It was more urban, and it was, you can walk everywhere. There's basketball courts nearby the apartment. Not so much here in Florida, where you pretty much have to drive everywhere, unless you're like in the heart of a downtown, like major city. But Asher, we've got 8 minutes left on our Zoom.
Let's talk about Dame, dude. Let's talk about.
Want to talk about Dame real quick? Okay.
Let's talk about Dame.
All right.
Because let's just like
you're a Heat fan, so let's be realistic here with Dame.
All right. So as somebody who's already acknowledged that the Canes are nothing but mediocre for 20 years, I think you at least can hopefully tell by now I'm a very honest and truthful sports fan.
Yes.
Here's the thing about the Dame thing. All these national pundits you watch, they're just filling airtime at this point. It's just a waste of time. Like, let's be real here. Dame Lillard has a contract that is a contract that's like a pill that you just don't want to swallow. Okay. And he's 33 years old. Here's the thing that I think the Miami Heat have learned in the last couple of years. We had an opportunity to go get Chris Paul. Everyone 5-6 years ago said he was too old. Chris Paul had a damn good 4 more years since we've said that, and he had a very solid career. Jimmy Butler. Everybody wants to talk about, Jimmy Butler. He's 35 years old, 36.
No, he's still killing it.
Did you not watch him? He
was incredible. He was, minus Jokic, he was the best player in the playoffs.
And he had an awful NBA Finals. But
I was talking about the playoffs as a whole. Of course, but rough in the finals. But
here is the big difference between Pat Riley and the Miami Heat organization. And I don't say this as a Heat fan. I say as a realist. They are arguably the only team in the NBA that takes their poker chips to the table and goes all in for it every year. Yep. They don't say we're building for 3 years from now. They don't look at the books and say, how can we make it 2 years from now? Pat Riley every year tries to figure out, how can we go all in? And he's going all in with Dame for one reason. He wants to win the title next year. And for all these, and I'm going to pick on you here, for all these lottery hoarders who say, let's get more lottery picks. Yeah. At the end of the day, one thing matters in the NBA. And it's how many rafters are hanging from your ceiling. That's it. It's all about winning a title. Who gives a crap about how many freaking lottery picks you got? No one gives a crap.
But I'm a realist. I'm a realist just like you are. I know Orlando is not a free agent destination like Miami. We don't have, one, it's not the same area. And two, it's just not, we don't have the same history, and we don't have the owner. We don't have
an aggressive owner.
We don't have an aggressive owner. We don't. And we've had the same owner for, I think our entirety. I think it's been the DeVos family since its inception. And yes, we've had a couple of free agents here and there, but never like compared to Miami. And so we have to build through the draft. That is our best course of action. And I think it is working now. Eventually, I like what we have. I love Paulo. I love Franz.
Yeah, I give you that.
And we just need some other pieces. I don't know what that looks like, but we'll see. I just think it's funny that the Dame trade, it still hasn't happened. I don't know what you do if you're Portland, because like it's the best deal you can get, like hero picks.
It's the only deal you can get, because nobody wants Dame other than the Heat.
But like, why don't you just trade him to another team?
Because you don't want to be there.
Screw it. Who cares? You're in a contract.
I agree with you. I do agree with you on that. But the problem is, in the NBA, the players get the final say. Kevin Durant got what he wanted. Bradley Beal got what he wanted. LeBron constantly got what he wanted. So if Dame wants to go to Miami, he's going to go to Miami. But at the same time, and see, this is where I think the national media kind of is unfair to the Heat. And I really mean this. It's not like Dame. Okay, let me be clear. Dame is a top 15 player in the NBA. And they're going to get him for pennies on the dollar. I don't dispute that.
Yes. Thank you.
But Dame comes with a contract that limits what you can do, because what's going to happen is you're going to have Jimmy Butler with Bam and Dame.
Yeah.
Which is your entire salary cap.
Right. You're going to have to fill it with a bunch of role players, minimum contracts.
But not only that, Kenny, his contract starts at like 50 million. By year 4, it's like 60 something $million.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Who
of money.
wants that? And you know who wants that? Teams that are A, willing to pay a luxury tax, but B, teams that just say the hell with it, we'll figure it out later, which is what Miami always does. And let's just be real for 1 second here. Like, forget Dame is this and Tyler Hero is this. But let me just ask you a broad picture here, because you said you like Paolo Banchero, right? The future is Paolo with the Magic.
100%.
I am not saying the future of the NBA is Tyler Hero, but what I am saying is you can have a future with a Tyler Hero and the money that he's bringing in that isn't Dame's money. Because if you have a guy like Hero, you're getting a point scorer, but at least you have a salary expectation now. What's Portland going to do 3 years from now with a 37, 38-year-old Dame Lillard making $60 million?
No, I mean, nothing. Realistically, nothing. Especially now that they drafted Scoot Henderson. Like, he's their future now. He's their point guard of the future.
So this narrative that the Heat are ripping them off is crap, because really they're actually setting them up for better success, because they're never going to accomplish anything with Dame. It's been proven for 12 years. He ain't done nothing with him. It ain't happening.
Yeah. No, I know. I get it. It just sucks that, like, you are going to get him for pennies on the dollar. You are. It just, there's no, but it's not because like you said, maybe they are getting a bad rap. It's not anything they're doing on their end. It's just, that's the only deal that's available, really. But it sounds like a third team is going to be involved at some point, because they don't really want Hero.
What do you think Dame is worth, though?
It's, you know what it is the market's completely thrown apart, like ruined, because of the Rudy Gobert trade. And then everyone sees what Rudy Gobert got, and they're like, well, if Rudy freaking Gobert.
Do you think that was worth it?
No, I think Minnesota's. No. I thought that was a ridiculous overpay. I thought that was a ridiculous trade. That
what do you think Dame's worth?
Dame at this point with that contract, he's at least worth 4. He's got. I mean, what was Rudy? 6 first rounders?
I
mean, Dame's got to be at least 4, or 5.
Why? Why just draft picks?
He's a superstar. And I mean, no, not just draft picks. You got to be draft picks, and you've got to be players.
Okay, but all right, but even if it's draft picks, right? Like, let's be real. Mm-hmm. The Heat are going to be in the playoffs, whether it's a 5 seed, a 7 seed, a 2 seed.
That's the thing. The picks need to be in the future. Picks. No, but the picks need to be in the future. They can't be anytime soon.
The Miami Heat have been in the playoffs, I believe, 20 of the last 22 years. So take all those draft picks you've had for 22 years, and I hate to say it, turn them sideways, and you know where to stick it. Because that's the argument that I'm constantly hearing is, oh, they're in the future. The Heat are always in the playoffs in the future. That's what they do.
I know, but at some point they're not going to be. You understand that, right? You don't just
Why
go
is that?
Every single year. Because at some point you have down years. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they've had they've had 2 non-playoff years in the last 22 years. I believe that's the stat.
Okay, but at some point here in the near future, you're going to have a down. Jimmy's in his mid-30s. Dame is going to be in his mid-30s. The only young player you have that's great is Bam.
And you know what the best part about that is? All these guys' contracts expire at the same time. And you know what that means? There's going to be a boatload of money to spend when they're gone, baby.
Exactly. Yeah.
Think about it.
All right. We have less than a minute. So thank you guys for watching. We're going to figure out that we don't have to do this on Zoom, so we can talk a lot longer. And we hope to do this once a week with y'all. So appreciate y'all listening. Asher, you got anything, man?
Kenny, I always like talking sports with you, even though because you and I rarely agree, but sometimes we do agree. So I think it's a good mix. And I really hope people really get a good glimpse of what like life is really like behind cameras.
Good deal. Awesome. All right, guys, take it easy.